Okay, we are now up to the 2009-2010 season. This is 1 year before. I don't know. I may stop the series here. I'll be completely honest. I may stop the series here. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do 2010, 2011. Because we're up to only 8 years ago. And most of us have been around for 2011 and beyond. And I've talked about the 2011 Stanley Cup a lot. So I haven't really decided whether I'm going to go that route again or not. Anyways, 2009-2010 was a big year for Washington in the regular season. 54 wins, 15 losses, 13 overtime losses. For New Jersey, 48-27-7. For Buffalo, 45-27-10. Your top three seeds are all division winners. Followed by Pittsburgh, 47-28-8. The Ottawa Senators, 44-32-6. Boston, 39-30-13. Philly, 41-35-6. And Montreal, in the playoffs, 39-33-10. Outside the playoffs at 38-33-11 are the Rangers. 35-34-13, Atlanta. Carolina, 35-37-10. Tampa Bay, 34-36-12. Islanders, 34-37-11. Florida, 32-37-13. And the Toronto Maple Leafs at 30-38-14. Out west, San Jose's 51-20-11. Followed by Chicago, 52-22-8. Vancouver, 49-28-5. Phoenix, 50-25-7. Detroit, 44-24-14. LA, 46-27-9. Nashville, 47-29-6. And Colorado in the playoffs at 43-30-9. Outside the playoffs, St. Louis, 40-32-10. Same record as Calgary. Anaheim, 39-32-11. Dallas, 37-31-14. Minnesota, 38-36-8. Columbus, 32-35-15. And the Oilers, 27-47-8. Now, your overall points leader, Henrik Sedin. This was a big year for the Sedin twins. Daniel's not on the board because he got injured for a large portion of that season, but his points per game were really high as well. 29 goals, 83 assists for Henrik. Crosby, 51 goals, 58 assists. Ovechkin, 50 goals, 59 assists. So the exact same amount of points between Crosby and Ovechkin. Backstrom, 33 goals, 68 assists for 101 points. Stamkos, 51 goals, 44 assists. St. Louis, 29 goals, 65 assists. Brad Richards, then playing for Dallas, 24 goals, 67 assists. And Joe Thornton, 20 goals, 69 assists in San Jose. Rookie leaders. Duchesne, 24 goals, 31 assists for Colorado. Tavares, 24 goals, 30 assists. Tyler Myers, 11 goals, 37 assists. Bergfors, 21 goals, 33 assists. Jamie Benn, 22 goals, 19 assists. Gagliardi, 15 goals, 24 assists. Delzato, 9 goals, 28 assists. And JVR, his rookie year, had 15 goals and 20 assists. Now, the interesting thing, of course, on this list is Bergfors. Bergfors was traded that year by the New Jersey Devils to the Atlanta Thrashers in the major trade involving Ilya Kovalchuk. Kovalchuk went to the Devils, who ended up finishing second in the East. At the time that they acquired Kovalchuk, they'd been kind of cold, and the feeling was, hey, maybe Lou Lamoriello's worked his magic and they're going to win a Stanley Cup. Didn't end up turning out that way. The Hart Trophy that year went to Henrik Sedin, the Lindsay. That's right, the Pearson becomes the Lindsay Award. Goes to Alex Ovechkin. The Calder goes to Tyler Myers. We can all easily forget, I think, just how great Myers was as a rookie. He was fantastic for Buffalo. He was amazing. And it set the bar too high for the rest of his career, it would seem. The Richard Trophy is split between Crosby and Stamkos. The Norris goes to Duncan Keith. The Vezina goes to Ryan Miller. The Lady Byng to Marty St. Louis. Selke to Pavel Datsyuk. The Adams goes to Dave Tippett in coaching Phoenix to 50 wins. The Jennings goes to Brodeur. Conn Smythe goes to Jonathan Taves of these guys. The Masterton goes to Jose Theodore of the Washington Capitals. The Clancy goes to Shane Doan of the Phoenix Coyotes. So it's a season of, well, Washington's dominance, right? They have 121 points that year. And what happens? Well, the playoffs roll around. It is a weird setup in the playoffs this year where it's almost all upsets in the East and the West kind of plays to form. Washington and Montreal, this is where the legend of Jaro Halak really begins. They beat Washington in 5, and Jaro Halak played out of his mind in that series. I was so impressed, and I was torn because I was not a Montreal fan, per se, But I was very appreciative of what Jaro Halak was doing. And again, this is when that narrative of, well, Washington can't win in the playoffs, Ovechkin can't win in the playoffs, that's when this narrative gets really, really, really ramped up. Number 2 seeded New Jersey, now with Kovalchuk, they lose in the first round to the Flyers, the number 7 seed in 5. Number 3 seed Buffalo, they lose to number 6 seed Boston in 6. The number 4 seeded Pittsburgh Penguins are the only home team to win in the first round. They win in 6 against the Ottawa Senators. So the number 5 seeded Senators are out. Out west, San Jose, number 1 seed, takes out Colorado in 6. The number 2 seeded Chicago Blackhawks take out Nashville in 6. Vancouver, the number 3 seed, take out LA in 6. And that was a series that made me very nervous. I remember being very concerned that the Kings would come back and win that series. Detroit wins a 7-game squeaker against the Phoenix Coyotes in 7. And man, I was so pulling for Phoenix that year. I really wanted to see, this would be great if they took out Detroit. And then you'd have San Jose, Chicago, Vancouver, and Phoenix left. You'd have no previous recent Stanley Cup winners still in there. In the East, in the second round, Montreal somehow continues. And the Jaro Halak legend is at its peak when they knock out Pittsburgh in 7. So the defending Stanley Cup champions out thanks to the Montreal Canadiens, which left me in an awkward position because now I'm cheering for Montreal in the playoffs and it doesn't feel right. And no amount of showering will get that feeling off of me because I think the Jaro Halak story of that year was so intriguing and so much fun to watch. So they win that one in 7. Boston gets up 3-0 against Philly. And I was like, all right, Boston and Montreal, here we go. Philly wins 4 in a row. And Game 7, Boston had it in hand and let Game 7 slip, and Philadelphia wins the game. That was hard. And you want to talk about when I became very, very kind of callous about teams that I cheer for? This might be it. Dallas misses the playoffs. Boston blows a 3-0 series lead against Philly. And we'll get to the Canucks in a moment. San Jose, the number 1 seed, they take out Detroit in the second round in 5. So San Jose is legitimately a contender at this stage. Chicago, the number 2 seed, they take out Vancouver in 6 again. I remember Game 6 because I didn't want to watch it. I remember at the time people were all excited about watching Game 6. And I just sat at my computer, put on music, and I didn't watch it. It was on my TV. Because not everybody was convinced that Vancouver was done, but I'm like, they're done. The only good thing that series was, I believe it was a 3-1 series lead for Chicago, and Vancouver won Game 5, but I knew they wouldn't win another one. Chicago just had Vancouver's number, and it was rough to watch. And it was rough to watch Luongo, again, getting so much flack for losing that series when it was Vancouver's entire blue line that kind of had issues in that series, and some of their forwards as well, for really, honestly. In the finals, the conference finals, Philly, the number 7 seed, meets the number 8 seeded Montreal Canadiens in the big underdog series, which Philadelphia won in 5. And it was too bad. And I say that as somebody that, again, people are like, wait, you were cheering for Montreal? Absolutely. I wanted to see how far the Halak story could go. And out west, Chicago beat San Jose in 4. And I did not like Chicago at the time. In fact, I couldn't stand Chicago. But here was the interesting thing. I didn't like Chicago. I already, at this point, am not a fan of San Jose because they've already started beating Vancouver way too much during the regular season. I'm not a Flyers fan either after they came back from 3-0 down against Boston. I know. And Montreal, of course not. So this was the year that I said, wow, if I don't like a team, they're in the Final Four. This is rough. In the finals, this was the only finals I never watched. I honestly, and I hate to say it, but I looked at this finals and I'm like, okay, I don't care. I'm done. And I think the combination of just Dallas crapping out, Boston blowing the 3-0 series lead, watching Chicago once again take out the Canucks and humiliate them on the way out the door. Knowing that Chicago and Philly, the teams that beat my favorite teams and humiliated them, are the teams meeting in the final, gave me no desire to watch the Stanley Cup Final. And this is, years before I have a channel or anything like that. So, I'm still just at this point just your standard hockey fan. And I'm not happy with the way this has gone at all. I am disgusted with the way the playoffs have gone. In the finals, Chicago wins both games at home, 6-5 and 2-1. And honestly, it turned out to be a pretty good series. It really did. Philly wins both games at home. Game 3, 4-3 in overtime. Game 4, they win 5-3. Chicago wins Game 5, 7-4. Game 6, Chicago wins in overtime 4-3 on a goal that not everybody knew went in the net. And it was the most baffling Stanley Cup winning goal of all time, I think. It went in. It did it? Yeah, it's in. Okay. That's the only part I watched. I watched the overtime of Game 6. And I watched parts of it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did see the part with the game-winning goal. I'm like, of course, that seems about right. So it was a very odd playoffs in general. Your goals leader was Mike Camilleri with 13. You want a trivia answer? There's one right there. Who led the playoffs in goal scoring in 2010? Nobody's going to guess Camilleri. Assists leader is Jonathan Toews at 22. Your points leader, Daniel Briere with 30. Your wins leader, Niemi had all 16. Michael Leighton had 8 and Boucher had 6. Coming out of these playoffs, the other narrative was this. You no longer need to pay your goalie $6 or $7 million. Just have 2 decent goaltenders like Philly had with Boucher and Leighton, and you're fine. You don't have to worry about rotating goalies. The problem with that theory was this. Yes, Niemi was not fantastic, but Niemi was okay. He was good. In Philly's Stanley Cup Final appearance here, there's some goal totals put up by Chicago that really you shouldn't see in a Stanley Cup Final. And it's because that goaltending wasn't very good for Philly. So you can make the argument that, you don't really need a premier goaltender. But if you look at where we are now, 8 years later, most contending teams have a premier number 1 goaltender. It was just one of those oddities of the playoffs that we saw with the Philadelphia Flyers. And for the Flyers, goaltending is still something that they look at. And it's funny because it's easy to make the argument that they got there and they didn't need a premier goalie. But my argument would be if they'd had a premier goalie that year, they would have won the Stanley Cup. Because Chicago wasn't that overpowering. It just felt like in the finals, they were able to stop some goals that Philly didn't. That 7-4 win by Chicago in Game 5 really stands out. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts on the matter in the comments section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just haven't upon this video. And if this is the last one in the series, and again, I know there's going to be people who say, well, what about all the other years? It's getting really, really recent. So it's kind of, I don't know. You guys can let me know in the comment section below if you want to see it go right through to this past season or what you want to see me do. Because I can. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below as always. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just tap upon this video. And I'll talk to you again soon.